The Lower Quadrant Y-Balance Test is a quick and reliable method of measuring somebody's lower limb dynamic balance. There are three reach directions for the Lower Quadrant Y-Balance Test. The anterior reach is anterior to the toes, and depending on the stance leg, whether it's the left or the right leg, the posteromedial is backwards and towards the medial side or the inside of the foot, and the posterolateral direction is backwards and towards the outside of the foot. Prior to performing the Lower Quadrant Y-Balance Test, the lower limb leg length needs to be measured. This is always measured on the right hand side of the body, and it's measured from the ASIS on the front of the hip to the distal tip of the medial malleolus. Before beginning the Y-Balance Test, you should inform the participant of the correct technique. When they're performing the test, they shouldn't put their foot on top of the sliders and push it forwards. They need to use the red marker. They also shouldn't shove the sliders. They also need to make sure they maintain their balance and don't touch the floor. They should also maintain their hands on their hips and not lose balance during the test. The Lower Quadrant Y-Balance Test is performed with 6 practice trials in each direction before 3 recorded trials. If standing on the left foot and testing the left foot first, the participant slides the anterior slider forwards with their right foot, using only their toes against the red marker. They then perform the posteromedial reach distance, and then they perform the posterolateral reach direction. They then repeat this another 2 times. The marker needs to slide the sliders back to the original position once they've taken note of what the reach distance is in centimetres. The participant can bend their standing knee if they want to, and this will help them to reach further. The scorer needs to record each individual reach distance on a chart similar to the one shown in this image. You then need to take the best of each of the reach directions for your final analysis. When calculating the results for the Y-Balance Test, we can make it easy for ourselves by setting up a good spreadsheet. So here in this example, I've set up the spreadsheet, so we put in the participant's name. Remember, we're keeping it confidential if needed. Out of the 3 reach distances, we've got our anterior, posterolateral and posteromedial, and we enter just the best of those 3 reach distances. So I've entered these in centimetres, and I've also entered the participant's limb length in centimetres. To make it easy for ourselves, I've entered a calculation here which adds up the best of the 3 reach distances. We can see from the calculation for our percentage reach composite score that we need to add the anterior, posteromedial and posterolateral reach directions, which are shown in this cell. We need to divide it by 3 times the limb length and then multiply it by 100 to give us our composite score. So what I've done here, and I'll do it again just to show you, is I've entered the total, so the anterior plus posteromedial plus posterolateral. I've then divided it by 3 times the limb length, and the limb length is already shown in cell F2. And then to give me my percentage, I'm going to times the whole thing by 100, and this shows that this participant was able to reach 106.8% of their limb length. Now if I click on the cell with the formula in it and use the little black box to drag down, and I do the same for the composite score column, it means now that if I get a second participant come in, it will automatically calculate the reach distances for me.